probably see something else other than himself. But and then what's next after that? After he punches the mirror,
or it's the next morning and he's walking into his into the front of his store.
Or because he lives in the back.
Yeah.
And he's about to open his shop. He basically restores antiques.
Antique mannequins.
And there's this young lady, Anna, who we meet. We find out her name is Anna later. But she's photographing these mannequins in the front of his store. And he comes out and kind of says, hey, what's up? What's going on? And she's like, oh, is it okay if I take pictures of your mannequins? I think they're really cool. And they kind of hit it off and they become friends. And then
he lets her in, and then she's like like what you said, she loves his mannequins. And then she's like, oh, I'd like to use them in a photo shoot, a gallery that I'm going to be having. And
her art installation that's coming up.
And he's kind of like, oh, well, I don't know. And then she's like, well, can you lease them to me, or can I rent them? And then she's like, well, I'll leave my number. Just call me if you make a decision. And then I think that's where she leaves. And I think that's when we're in front of the gymnast place, right? Or the spinning person in front of the window.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
When you were like Suspiria.
Yeah.
And then he follows this girl to the subway. Correct?
Yeah.
And she notices him right away.
Because he's kind of maybe a couple seats away from her, and he keeps on looking at her. And she notices some creepy guy staring at her. And she gets off on this random stop. And you can tell it's a place she's never kind of really been, because she gets off and she starts walking really fast, and then she notices that he is following her.
He gets off.
Yeah.
And they kind of both walk up this stairway, but he's on the other side.
Yeah.
And she turns around and she's like, what the fuck? Why don't you leave me alone?
Yeah.
And by that time, she's already kind of lost her shit and she's running away.
Yeah.
And there's nobody around.
That's one of the things where I'm like, where the hell is everybody?
It's so crazy that there's nobody around. And then she makes it up the stairwell, from the subway platform into the street, and there's a truck, but there's still, and she runs into the other side of where there's an alley, like a fucked up seedy looking alley, and she runs into this car lot, off to the side, hoping that she can hide in between the cars and get away from him. But by this time, he's already in the car lot, and he reveals his big hunting knife that he's got.
Yeah. That's when he locks up the gate behind him.
So she can't
get out.
Yeah, she can't get out. And she's kind of looking around, and we don't know where Frank's at, and he slices her Achilles, I think it looked like.
That gets me every time.
He's hiding underneath one of the trucks that she walks by and kind of slices her while hanging on to the bottom of the car. And then he comes out of the car, and she's begging for her life, and he stabs her to death.
Yeah, that scene was pretty brutal.
Especially because it's a huge, that hunting knife that they have, that you said you actually have. It just looks devastating.
Yeah.
And he pulls like a Zodiac killer.
Yeah, he just stabs her a bunch of times.
Yeah, over and over and over and over, and then scalps her.
Yeah, and then I like that scene where he's kind of, after he does it, he kind of looks around to see if anyone's, seen him, commit this murder, and then he kind of just takes off. It was super creepy and unsettling.
Yep, it is.
To say the least.
And then we are thrown a flashback, which is even more unsettling.
Oh yes.
Of him. He's a child. It's from his childhood, and he's in the closet Or
hiding in his mom's room.
Yeah, hiding in his mom's room and watching his mom participate in a three-way with two dudes. And as if that's not bad enough,
she pulls out
the Coke.
Some Coke and starts doing lines.
And then she looks up and she sees that he's there, and she says, "Shh, I love you."
She's like, "Mommy loves you." And then she kind of like falls back onto the bed, and it's like, what the fuck?
And we just see, and we kind of that's the first kind of piece as to why why he's kind of messed up.
Yeah,
his upbringing was
it wasn't too healthy for a growing child's mind.
He just wanted to be a mama's boy.
Yeah. And what else happens after that? We get
Frank and Anna go to the theater to see the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is this kind of classic film at the Palace Theater in LA.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they watch the film, and he gets this kind of weird. He starts having headache problems in the chair, and he kind of looks and he sees Anna as a mannequin.
Yeah, which is fucking creepy as hell.
It's a really cool a little scene. And anyway, they get done with the movie, and Anna's boyfriend comes back into town for a little bit, and he asks them out for a drink. Frank gets kind of annoyed by this, and he's like, "You know what? I'm really tired."
Yeah, he's like, "I have some things to do early in the morning. You go ahead and have fun. I'll talk to you later." And she's like, "Oh, are you sure? Come on." And then he's like, "No, go ahead." So she takes off, and
then so he gets really upset.
Yeah,
he's upset, and he starts walking back to probably his car or something, and we get another flashback of his. It's his mom and one of the guys from the three-way, and they're like just going and like having sex in front of him,
like on the sidewalk.
Yeah, like in the middle in public.
And she's like, "Go to the car, Frank. Wait for me in the car."
And then so the camera kind of does this 360 turn back to him, and we see Frank as a kid.
Yeah.
And then he kind of listens. She's like, "God damn it!" And then it goes back to her, the mom, and the guy, and then you see it's Anna and her boyfriend. And there's that weird like relationship where he's very protective over these women because of the whole mom thing. Which is interesting because that a lot of the time with serial killers, that does have a big play in what they do, or how they justify what they do.
Yeah. So
it's kind of interesting to see, that kind of laid out in front of you in film.
Yeah. Really. Man.
But then we just see like the little boy Frank kind of walk back to the car.
Yeah.
Like his mom told him to.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to Frank arriving to Anna's art installation night.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And they go into the party, and it seems to be going pretty well for her. Everything's a success. It's full, and she's super happy. And we meet her agent, and then Frank seems to be having fun. He's very happy for her. He walks to the bathroom, and he gets confronted by one of her.
It was her boyfriend. And he's like, so you're one of Anna's gay friends. He's like, it's really great to have for her to have some guy friends that aren't trying to fuck her all the time. And then he's like, Elijah's like, or Frank is like, "I'm not gay." And he's like, "What?" And that's her boyfriend's washing his hands.
Excuse me.
Yep. And then he's like, "What? What'd you say?" And then he walks over to him and dries his hands off on Frank's jacket. And then he's like, "Have a nice night." And then he walks away.
Excuse me.
And then that's when he is confronted by Anna's agent. And she's kind of like, oh, you should... I had this really nice... this really weird guy that I work with, and he does destruction pieces. And he would love to get his hands on your mannequins so he can destroy them for his artwork. And then he's like, they're antiques. And she's like, oh, well, don't you get these from like a dumpster?
Do you go dumpster diving?
And he's like, you don't find antiques in dumpsters. And then he's pretty upset about that. And I guess that kind of rubs him the wrong way. And she takes off. She actually walks home from the art gallery. And
the agent.
Yeah, the agent. And he follows her home to her suite or apartment, whatever she's in.
Yeah. She obviously she thinks she's alone. She slips into the tub.
Yes.
The glass of wine. She puts a little towel over her eyes, living the life, so she thinks. And there's this really cool shot where he walks into the bathroom and he's kind of sitting at the end of the tub while she's there. She reaches for a glass of wine and she's not. She doesn't find it, and he kind of pushes it.
Yeah, he kind of just, here you go, like kind of pushes it a little bit, and then she gets it and takes a drink of it.
Very, very cool, subtle detail there.
Yeah.
And then he's playing with the bubbles in the tub while she's in the tub, and then she finally gets that sense that something's wrong. I think she pulls the towel off her eyes, looks up and sees Franck and starts to struggle, and he shoves her under the water.
Yeah.
Until she passes out. She doesn't die though.
No.
That'd be too easy.
Yeah. That's when we cut to her on her bed and she's kind of hogtied.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, she starts screaming, and he's like, no, don't scream, and he shoves like her underwear or socks or something in her mouth. And he's like, why what does he say, like, why would you leave me tonight, or like why would you go out? He's kind of he's talking to his mom through her.
Yes.
And that's what they're trying to show you, and he's like, mommy, I love you. Mommy.
He kind of he slices her back up a bit, kind of playing with her, and she says, please don't. She spits out the underwear and she says, please don't kill me.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to keep you.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh.
That was really creepy.
He's like, mommy, because how I interpret this movie is that when he scalps someone and he puts their hair on the mannequin, that's him kind of immortalizing that person within that mannequin in his mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so he
ends up scalping her.
But that's probably the most brutal scalping of the entire movie, because there's this huge build-up, and he says, and then he gets kind of mad, right? And he's like, you will not go out tonight.
Yeah.
You will not leave me anymore.
Yeah.
And he, like, does this devastating fucking...
slice across her forehead.
Oh, and
the way he just he pulls like the whole top of her hair off.
And you just see her brain, and she's still screaming while he's doing it mid scalp, and you see her kind of the expression leave her face,
and as the blood runs down her face too.
Yeah, and then they just cut to something else.
Yeah. They cut to him. He calls Anna. He hears Anna crying on the phone, and he's like, "Oh, what's wrong, Anna?" And then she's like, "Oh, my agent.
They found her dead.
Yeah, she was murdered.
Somebody must have followed her home from the event. Yeah. They must have been waiting for her, and they broke into her apartment, and they killed her. And then he says, oh, you know, that's terrible. Do you think you would need some company? And then she doesn't want to really bother him, so she's like, no. And he's like, what about your boyfriend? And then